Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is the Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us today. It is going to be a celebration of the life of Pat Summitt. It will be fast-paced because we have 10 people involved in today's show, more than 120 photos, archival photos that we've got in today's show. And there has been much mourning, and rightfully so this week. But I think it's time, Pat Summitt, when she was diagnosed with her disease, she said, I don't want a pity party. Today will not be a pity party. We are going to talk about the fun things that made her unique, that made her special, that brought joy to so many people across this state and across this country. Let's get right underway. First segment of our show brought to you by our friends at Tennova Healthcare. And I can tell you that the folks at Tennova are proud to salute the memory of Pat Summitt today, as we all are. I have a full panel. We start off with a special guest right next to me, Mickey Dearstone. Of course, you can hear him on sports radio WNML, but longtime play-by-play voice, host of the Pat Summitt Show, play-by-play voice of the Lady Vols. Mickey, thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
Right there, Mike Strange from the Knoxville News Sentinel, and boy, you guys and your comrades, Dan Flesser and John Adams, yourself, all of your folks, great work this week. Jimmy Himes from Sports Talk, of course, right down there. Chuck Cavaleris, our resident historian here, because he's the oldest man on set. All right, that's not true.
No, he's not.
As I say, we've got a ton of people here. We've even got one former men's player drove 3 hours this way just to tell a quick story about Pat Summitt's pregame speech before a men's game and how much better it was than Jerry Green's typical fare. So stick around. We got a lot of stuff today. First thing, I wanted to talk about what made her unique. And there's been a lot of talk about this week that you're not going to see someone like Pat Summitt come this way again. It's just a rarity. Mike, before the show, you mentioned it's kind of like Muhammad Ali, and I agree with you. Mickey, you dealt with her very closely for years and years. How do you sum her up? What made her unique?
I think it's because she was grounded. And I know that sounds really simple, but a lot of times success changes people. But her upbringing, being raised on a farm, a real strict father, she stayed grounded where a lot of people might have changed their personality, and I think that helped her in her success.
I'm going to go with timing. All the things that everybody else is going to talk about and that we know about her, she came along at a time when, women's athletics, Title IX, women's basketball was just, there was a frontier there for her to blaze a trail, and with her remarkable, unique abilities, that just had a great impact with the timing.
Right person, right place, right time.
Yes.
Kind of coattailing what Mickey said, I think she was humble amidst the great accomplishments that she had. But the other thing I thought was her communicative skills, whether it was to the media, whether it was to the players, whether it was to her administration. And a part of that was verbal, and a part of that was with her stare. She could communicate with a stare. Didn't have to say anything. Right. You got the message.
Chuck?
One of the things that always stood out to me was it was never about Pat. It was always about the people and the program and women's basketball, and through all of the accomplishments, it was never about her. And I thought she was just like one of the greatest students of the game you'd ever be around, because she made some changes and adapted throughout her career that was probably more difficult for her to do than a lot of people realize. But she made them because it was best for the program to move forward.
I think that, touching off what Jimmy said there, she had the most unique mix of true greatness. I work in television. You guys work with celebrities and sports being coaches and players. We all deal with egos. TV, we're just huge egos. But a lot of people think they're great and they're not truly great. Pat Summitt had greatness in her. She cultivated it. She reached great heights. And yet she had that mix of honest humility. There are a lot of us in this world who flip that switch. We all know them. We're all thinking of certain people right now that he'll give you an autograph, then as soon as you leave, the thought is, these losers, get away from me. She wasn't like that. It was real. I produced 20 or so years ago, I produced the first season of the Pat Summitt Show. And what stood out to me is if she was late, Now back then she wasn't late often for our show. Apparently she was later on. But whenever she would show up late, she would give me a call and say, John, I'm going to be there at 1:08 instead of 1 o'clock. And by gosh, she'd walk in at 1:08, and the crew, we're used to being pushed around by the big anchor people or whoever. She would come in and thank all of the camera people, and she would apologize to them, apologize to the floor crew, apologize to the director, the producer, the audio person. Your time is as important as mine. You don't find that. You don't find that in someone that had achieved her heights and still realized, hey, you're just as important as I am.
Well, we overuse the word icon, the words role model, words like that in the sports world, but all of them fit her because she was truly what you saw.
Yeah, there was not a lot of airs there. I mean, it was pretty much my favorite story this week, and I'm sure you've all seen it. There was the coaching get-together at a person's house, and she was kind of the guest of honor, and all these coaches wanted to hear from her. And after dinner, they were looking for her to chat. Couldn't find her. Someone went into the kitchen, and there she was with her sleeves rolled up doing the dishes. That kind of sums up the Pat Summitt I knew. Funny thoughts. Anything that, when you look back, again, we've had a sad week for a lot of people. What brings a smile to your face when it comes to Pat Summitt?
Oh, when she dressed up like a cheerleader.
Yeah.
For that men's basketball game after Bruce Pearl had gone shirtless, which wasn't as funny. But I thought when she came out with a cheerleader and sang Rocky Top, that one was a moment that I think of a lot.
And to add to that, when they did like the pyramid and she's trying to climb on top of that and everybody's saying, no, be careful.
That's right. Mike?
And she wasn't a great singer based on
that version.
But she did it, yeah.
You think Pat could do anything, but she couldn't be on Broadway, right?
and what's funny, again, that gets back to, someone with an ego isn't going to do that. Because unlike Bruce Pearl just taking your shirt off, I mean, Bruce Pearl was in some pretty good shape. But for Pat to put the feather thing on the head, to dress as a cheerleader, to get up on the pyramid, to sing, that was much more of a sacrifice than what Bruce Pearl did, I think. So when we come back here on the Sports Source, I want to talk more about moments, memories that stand out to these folks. We have former Pat Summitt players, former Pat Summitt boss, former men's coach, former men's player. We got a lot more to come as we talk about Pat Summitt and celebrate her life today on the Sports Source. Come on back.